Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, watching at home tonight, and those with us for the first Republican primary debate. Tonight, we will be exploring the stances of our three candidates, DrGatsby, Ukrainian, and TimothyRUnderwood. We're going to open the stage up tonight for an informative back-and-forth discussion. I, Salvatore Patterson, will be moderating tonight's debate with the help of EUSA's developer, MathMinded. Now, without further ado, let's begin with a brief opening statement from each candidate. You will have 2 minutes to complete your opening statement, and we're going to go in alphabetical order, starting with Senator Gatsby.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in tonight, including my two opponents. I've been a public servant in this group for nearly 2 years now, and I've grown tired of putting my trust in other candidates for the presidency and watching from the sideline as they disappoint both myself and this country. I've come to believe that the only road forward for us will come if I myself run for the presidency and implement the reforms that we so desperately need. For too long, we've seen the same people inherit the Oval Office. The presidency has become a revolving door that the Democratic Party uses and abuses. I'm running for president to stop this endless cycle and to take this nation back for the outsiders. We have a lot of work to do, and it all starts with tonight's first Republican debate. I look forward to debating the important issues that our country faces, and I thank everyone for coming out once again.
Thank you, Senator Gatsby. Mr. Underwood, you are next.
Thank you for this wonderful announcement, Mr. Patterson, and I say good luck to all my fellow candidates, opponents. Now, I am TimothyRUnderwood, and I started my campaign to bring back the government to the people. The current government is run to bring back our government to the citizens. Our government was founded on the basis of we the people. We are going by them the people, them the government. We need to bring back to us. I am an ordinary citizen, and I was thought of a wonderful idea for running for the people. I have wonderful ideas as a reform to the military, and we need to focus on our group for other groups. We need to focus on activity, military, guns to bring the police into activity, and we need to focus on so many things that our current government is not focusing on. I hope everyone will have a fun time watching this debate, and good luck to everyone of my opponents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. And lastly, Mr. Ukrainian.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. I will make sure to make this short and filled. The people of the United States deserve a better future with a president that can be trusted. I, Ukrainian, plan to be that president that the people can trust. My domestic and international policies far outmatch my competitors, as well as my foreign support for my election bid. I single-handedly have more international recognition, support, and experience than all of my competitors and colleagues combined. I have also displayed the most amount of patriotism on the stage while in coordination with Mr. Gatsby while working between the CIA and FBI relations. Lastly, this Republican primary debate will prove to the American people that I myself am capable of effectively running and providing for the future of these United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ukrainian.
All right, we will now begin our segment of general questions. We will start in reverse order this time with Mr. Ukrainian going first. So, Mr. Ukrainian, how would your candidacy best benefit the Republican Party and your ability to win the general against the Democratic or Unitarian Party nominee?
I believe that me running as a Republican, I can best benefit the Republican Party as that I have actual Republican values. Many of my colleagues, including Mr. Gatsby holds Unitarian values. He holds for the Unitarian Party. I hold generally just for the Republican Party. I believe that my presidency will show that the Republican Party can be trusted in the presidency and the Republican Party can be trusted in the government. I also believe that myself I am fully able to win against the Democratic nominee and the Unitarian nominee. Because of this, I find this because of my polling and many of my results showing that I have a better polling than many of the Democrats and the Unitarians. If we unite the Republican Party together to vote for myself to become president, then we can win the general election.
Thank you, Mr. Ukrainian. Now, Mr. Underwood, same question. If you would like, I can repeat the question.
Please repeat the question.
All right. How would your candidacy best benefit the Republican Party and your ability to win the general against the Democratic or Unitarian Party nominee?
I hold very strong Republican values from gun control to foreign relations. I believe that I will best benefit citizens, for I am just a citizen. I want to open up every door to the White House, like George Washington and all the other presidents in real life and before like the 1800s. And I really want to help out the citizens. I hold Republican values over everything, and I believe that gun control is needed. Not gun. Oh my! Did not know this was going to be on Discord. I had everything ready for Roblox. I'm sorry. Gun control is not needed. We need to strengthen our own military and to help protect us and bring activity within the group. And I believe that I can win over everyone else because I am for the citizens. Now, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. And now, Mr. Gatsby, a restructured question for you. Since you are a member of the Unity Party, how could your candidacy help the Republican Party by advancing its platform?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My opponent, a Ukrainian, stated that he believes in bringing back the Republican Party back to a place where we can hold government office. And it's just, I helped found the Unity Party because the American people had lost faith in the Republican Party. And for what I think is good reason. There's been an obvious lack of leadership coming from the party. Despite the Republicans themselves as a party not being very popular, the anti-democratic sentiment is very popular. If you were to add up the anti-democrat vote in our last congressional election for the House, it comes out to a total of 85 votes compared to 55 votes for the Democrats. So people are fed up with the Democratic Party, yes, but they are, lost in finding a reliable alternative, and that's why I helped found the Unity Party, so that more so in the hopes that Unity and the GOP could form a coalition against the Democrats, as more people are anti-Democrat than they are Democrat. And that's exactly why I'm running for both the Republican primary and the Unity primary, to form a coalition presidency against this party that's dominated, every president other than LDU. And Mr. Green, when he was a Republican, has been a Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gatsby.
All right. Next question is for Mr. Gatsby. As it is still very early in election season, we don't expect that any of you have specific policy plans, but if each of you could state some unique ideas to build upon the Republican platform and continue the successes of and fix the failures of the Russo administration. So if you could lay some of those plans out, and after Mr. Gatsby has 1 minute to respond to the question, Mr. Ukrainian and Mr. Underwood feel free to debate with Mr. Gatsby freely about what he has to say and bring up your own ideas.
Thank you. You see, my campaign platform is in the works. It will be out soon, and that will be that will have a broad outline of some of my policies. For specifics, that will be released in my plan later on, but I can talk broadly about some of my plans. First and foremost would be to roll back, some of the unnecessary things that previous presidents, and this goes beyond Russo, have done. Obviously, this year we gained recognition, and that's a big thing for all of us. I shared in the joy of when we achieved it. It's great for our country, and I'm a huge supporter of it. But I feel that ever since we have gained recognition, we've been in a constant struggle to maintain it. And I feel like our resources as a country have been largely allocated to our recognition as opposed to our domestic policies, which I do believe was mentioned in the Democratic debate. So I can agree with them on that. We have way too many resources being dedicated to keeping our recognition. I think there's a fine line between recognition and our domestic policy where we can appropriately allocate resources so that we're not either lacking at home and doing great on the international stage, or doing great at home and lacking on the international stage. Thank you.
Right. If Mr. Ukrainian or Mr. Underwood have anything to add, please do so now. If not, Mr. Underwood can go about answering the question.
Nothing to add in that regards.
All right, then, Mr. Underwood, you can start talking about some of your policy ideas to expand upon the Republican platform and to add upon the successes of the Russo administration and to fix some of the failures of the Russo administration.
Okay, so we need one of my biggest ideas for the government is to actually open up the doors of the White House to allow citizens to come in and talk to the president no matter what, so that their voices are heard more to the government from the citizens and from everyone, and being a government where we don't care about the citizens, a government where we just cut them out of the equation, and where the politicians are just voting on what they want. I remember during one of the House sessions, they added an amendment to a bill. And the public did not like this amendment whatsoever. And that really started my campaign because I want to open up the doors to allow people. And adding on to what Gatsby said about the recognition, we are focusing way too much on recognition. We already have it with so many different nations, and we have shown time and time again that we will triumph over NUSA. However, we're not going to fully be able to triumph over NUSA much longer if we don't focus on our own structure of to raise activity. We need to get people actually into it. What is the best way? As much as I don't want to say it, it's criminals. We need to spike up guns and all that stuff so that the police will actually have a job to do. Currently, the police don't really have a job to do I've never seen a gun dealer in DC. We should start doing stuff like that to be able to raise up activity. Those are some of my ideas. I have many others, but those are the ones that I have fully worked on and I am going to continue working on to make this country the best that it can be. Thank you.
I have a rebuttal, Mr. Peterson.
Patterson, and you can.
Patterson, pardon that. Mr. Underwood, in your recent policies, you explained that you want to further gun control and more national security. Allowing the people to walk into the White House, I know that was just a figure of speech, but that would still raise national security concerns. Also, having a gun dealer in Washington, D.C. would probably not be the best idea, but to raise activity among our police, we have many other ideas, many ideas that can raise activity in DC in order for crime to go up or whatever to get the police active. Guns are not necessary. Guns will lead to violence among people, and violence among people will end up with one of us being president and one of us being shot. And we don't need that with people freaking out and chaos in the streets. We don't want that. And in my policies, I focus on a large portion of national security. My national security concerns include securing our nation, securing our values, securing our people, and keeping everyone safe. That was just my rebuttal, by the way, to your post.
All right. So I see what you are saying, and I agree with a lot of it, but we have to look at the reality of the situation. When you are looking at an average Robloxian, they'll join a game and wonder if they can walk around. No one just wants to walk around, buy a car, and speed around the Capitol.
Well, that's why we need to open an actual space for them to go to. Washington, D.C. right now, and I'm sure Mr. Clemens would agree with me on this, Washington, D.C. is huge. Washington, D.C., you spawn at the Capitol building, and it takes you 15 minutes to walk to the White House, and most noobs don't know how to use the teleportation system. That's why we need to open a direct place where people can talk, people can hang out, and people can just, in general, give suggestions for the government to do. That's what we're doing with the White House place right now. We have all our press conferences there instead of a separate place. We have all of our meetings there, all of our stuff, everything that we do is there now. That's why we need to localize all of our information, all of our places to that location. Instead of having DC, I'm not saying we shouldn't use DC at all. I'm just saying that if we want noobs to be able to understand and get into our group and actually walk around and talk to people, then we should use the White House.
Oh, we want to raise activity in the White House, yet we're not going to raise activity in our own Capitol where we can. Why don't we just minimize the map at the Capitol? It doesn't have to be 100% realistic. Like,
well,
let's say like NUSA's Capitol, that would be one of the you can walk around it in 10 minutes.
First of all, Mr. Underwood, using NUSA as a reference within this debate is very inappropriate. But I'd like to say that in regards to what you brought up as a reference concerning NUSA, NUSA is entirely different because their places, they bring noobs to their place and they basically just rob them out of their money because they put game passes up that cost 700 to 1,000 Robux for guns, for decreased weapon prices. We're not about that. Our government does not want to rob people out of their money. Our government wants a place where people can have fun, talk to each other, and just have a normal, civilized discussion in government. That's why we need to use the White House, because the White House is smaller. We can talk to each other without walking a huge mile. We can use Washington, D.C., but I agree with you. We need to cut down Washington, D.C. and cut it in half almost.
If I could get in on this, I like to throw in my 2 cents. Again, I feel like, and I hate to compare to Noosa, but when you look at Noosa's places, it's kind of like a free for all. I mean, they've kind of just thrown all decorum out the window.
Agreed.
They've just kind of thrown all decorum out the window. They don't care if people are running around with guns and there's no one there to enforce the law. So, Noosa's places have predominantly become citizens and non-government employees kind of causing a circus versus, what I think most people would want for our DC, which would be sort of a fine line, because you'd want to have crime and you'd want to have a little bit of crime just so that our law enforcement has stuff to do. But at the same token, you don't want it to be a free-for-all because that just kind of reflects poorly on our government and on USA as an institution. So there has to be more to do at DC, and this has been said in almost every debate for years. And I don't think the president per se has a lot of power when it comes to this. But, you got to do the best you can with what we have.
I totally see what you're saying, and I can agree with some of your points. However, NUSA has activity. We don't. Our activity comes from politics. Average people don't join a group for politics. They want to join the group for fun and games. Has the games and has the fun, even though how bad it might be. I had a conversation with an FBI agent. He showed me around the academy. This was like a week ago, and he told me that there's no reason to join it. There's no reason to do anything. What I'm proposing is a reason to join the FBI, grow our agencies, add more agencies after we grow our current ones. We cannot just sit around thinking that, everything active. It won't make everything active. NUSA has activity. Why some row nations actually voted for NUSA in the recognition crisis. We cannot around and ignore that. We need to actually raise our activity.
Okay, to rebuttal that, to show you two examples of like totally two different sides of your point. Now, first off, I was president of two different countries. I was president of Afghanistan and the Ukraine. When I was president of Afghanistan,
you were also the king of Israel, and you also destroyed Israel.
I'm talking about a different point. That your input was very inappropriate, and that was not necessary. Secondly, when I was president of Afghanistan, we used NUSA's way of thinking. We charged people 600 Robux to join, like to get a position within the group, and all this, to get guns, to get all this stuff. The group fell. The group fell because people became money greedy, money hungry. That's not like the USA. Now, when I was president of the Ukraine, what we did the exact opposite. We put our own money into the group. We did not charge people for anything. Everything was a free society. The Ukraine had no activity whatsoever. And I'm going to admit that. Afghanistan had 50 people servers. 50 people were in games. The games had 2 servers filled up. Now, the difference is people want to go to a game where they're going to spend lots of money and they'll actually have a reason to be in that game. Now, if we want to go with NUSA's policy, like you said, sure, go ahead. If you're president, go with NUSA's policy. You're just going to get called out like NUSA was in the United Nations for following their policies. We're USA. We have different laws, different way of thinking. So we need to follow that way of thinking instead of saying we need activity like NUSA. We need activity like these other USAs. We don't need activity like these other USAs. We need an active government. We need active agencies, stuff like that. And that's totally normal. We'll get that. Eventually, with my presidency, we'll get that. We'll get there.
If I could get in, because I believe if we're doing this by turns, it'd be my turn. I do agree that there can be activity in USA, and I would not want it to be NUSA activity. But activity starts, honestly, with the president. And with Russo especially, he's a perfect example. Because President Green, I think, was very good in terms of he was always around in the general chat, and he made it his business to be at DC whenever he could, which was quite often. But we haven't really gotten that from Russo. And it shows, because when the president goes to DC, the Secret Service goes to DC. Other people see that there's a couple of people in DC, so they're inclined to join. So it's kind of like a domino effect, and it starts with the president. So if the president has no investment in activity, it affects the whole nation. And I pledge, if I'm elected president, that like Connor M. Green, President Green, I will make it my business to make my presence shown at DC whenever possible. And I'd just like to touch on Ukrainian mentioning his position in the Ukraine. I understand a bit of drama going on there where he's trying to get the nation back. He wants to own it. I've seen a message that he had sent to Yuri Olav, who I believe is the prime minister.
Now, Mr. Gatsby, I think you're having this all wrong. The reason I'm trying to regain power within the Ukraine is not to lead the Ukraine. No. The government of the Ukraine is actually, Timothy, you were quite right. The government of the Ukraine is currently
like a coup because
Mr. Gatsby, I'm currently talking.
You're threatening civil war.
You did interrupt while I was.
I am not.
All right, one at a time. Mr. Ukrainian, you continue.
The government of the Ukraine is currently planning a coup and to civil war the government. I'm not offering to become president of the Ukraine. I'm offering to be group manager until the group is fucking fixed. Pardon my language. I'm trying to make a point where the government needs to stabilize. The people need to stabilize. Currently, everybody in that government hates Mr. Orlov. Everybody. It's like if you take Mr. Russo, and you make him a Nazi, everybody in the USA will hate him. Everybody, even you, even me, even Timothy.
Are you calling
everybody
Russo
will hate him.
a Nazi?
I'm not calling him a Nazi. I'm giving an example. If he became a Nazi, Mr. Orlov follows far-right fascist policies. That's why his government is trying to coup him. I'm not threatening him. I'm telling him that if he does not change his policies or allow me to step in and fix the chaos, then he's going to be either couped or lose his entire government.
Well, I appreciate your explanation, but when it comes to me, at least, I sort of have a I prioritize USA. I'm not involved in any other foreign nation.
Well,
So
that might be your problem because you have
I question your commitment to USA over the Ukraine. Why are you so invested that you're willing to drop 20,000 Robux of your own money to hold the
because
group?
as a president of the United States, I would contribute to the world, not just the United States, to the world. Because if a government hated its leader, I would donate to that government 40,000 Robux of my money, which I have 46,000 currently. I would donate exactly 40,000 Robux to them for them to take that president out of power and get the group back. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to give up my personal money, my personal values to give them their group back.
And you would like to be founder or holder? Did you say?
I would be holder.
Holder, but what would your plans be for after you win the presidency? Assuming you did, because
I would give the group to the person that deserves it the most.
Do you have any names?
Yes, I do have a name. That's Enver Pasha, or also known as Erturk. He was the former prime minister of the Ukraine and was taken out of government illegally by the president.
Nice.
Go ahead.
So what I'm hearing from Ukraine is that he is willing to invest money to commit coups across the world.
Incorrect. I'm willing to commit money to contribute for countries to become stabilized. I'm willing to contribute my money, my time, my effort, my values, my policies for governments around the world to become stabilized and to come back together and become peaceful. I'm not advocating coups. If I was advocating coups, then I would be throwing money at a bunch of coups all over the world. I'm not doing that. I'm advocating my money, my time, and my effort for countries to become stabilized. And that includes this USA.
Well, there's only so much that money can buy. I mean, you can't do this for each and every one of our allies. If you could, that'd be a blessing. And, it'd be great. And that would solve our whole recognition crisis. But
I realize that. I'm yet again, I say I don't have enough money to give to everybody in the world. I wish I had that much.
What we have to understand is that recognition is something earned, not something that we can not something we can buy, not something we have to step on needles for. It seems like everything we do, we tread very lightly, all in the name of foreign recognition. We watch what we do. We basically conduct ourselves based on recognition, and I think that's honestly something very flawed and something that if I'm elected president, I will hopefully put an end to, is that we will earn our recognition. We won't have to, step on eggshells with everything we do in the fear of losing our recognition. Thank you.
Exactly. We need that instead of going around and throwing money at our problems and letting it go away.
Okay,
that's what you're saying.
I think you have it all wrong. I'm not giving money for recognition. I'm not that stupid. I'm not like you. I'm not going to give 1,000 Robux and say, "Hey, recognize me."
That is very out of line.
No. Okay, I'm not going to. Okay, pardon that. I'm not going to do that. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stabilize governments. Exactly what I'm going to do to this government. I'm going to stabilize it. I'm going to put it together, put the pieces back together. I'm not cooing governments. I'm not throwing money for recognition. If I was throwing money for recognition, I'd walk up to the Secretary General of the United Nations, throw him 40,000 Robux and say, keep the USA within the UN or you don't get the money. If I did that, then that would be me trying to consolidate power of the USA. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to put pieces back together.
If I remember correctly, you owned Israel, correct?
Yes, I owned Israel.
If I may chime in as a moderator, I have just
owned Israel, correct?
Excuse me. I have gotten recent questions, and I know this is a little out of the typical rhythm of things, but I do believe this is a valid question. People are asking me, for Mr. Ukrainian, your history of trying to buy groups, and with that, there's a screenshot that has been given to me of let me see. Well, it's very low res, but I can't really read it, so I won't even mention that. But the question brought forth to me is, what history do you have of trying to buy groups, and if there is any history there?
All right. Trying to buy groups or buying groups? just
well,
both
I mean,
together?
trying to buy groups or buying groups, either or is fine.
A large portion, a lot of my money I put towards buying ronations and stuff like that. I'm not, but I put a lot of time to my ronations. What I did, I don't sell the ronations, I give them away. What I did for Afghanistan, I gave it to my friend STX shot. I was like, hey, do you want the Afghanistan? It's time for me to move on. At this point, I've been in the United States for about a year and a half. I don't think I'm going to give up on the USA even if I lose the election. I think I'm going to keep on going. But with a lot of these groups that I bought over time, I ended up giving them to friends, prime ministers of the group, whatnot. What I did with let me put for example, Ukraine. What I did was I gave it to my friend STX Shutter again. STX is a good friend of mine. He's Ukrainian, who's born in Kiev. Yeah, I have a long history of buying groups. I admit that, but I haven't thrown them away. I'm not killing them. I'm not ruining them like Timothy says I am. I'm actually, I give them, once I'm done with them, once I've been done with them, I'm not going to sell them. I've given them away to the owner. I've given them away to the person that I'm supposed to give them to, the person that deserves the group.
I see. Follow-up question then. What stands? I don't want to say self-importance, but what claim do you have that you have the best interest for them, as opposed to having them settle their own discourse and you just stepping in, buying the group? And
are you in talking in regards to Ukraine?
Ukraine or other groups? I mean, I'm yeah.
In regards to other groups, I don't believe I have any power in any groups to do that other than the Ukraine. The founder Kitty Abs, I was her first prime minister. I was in the group since 2010. I formed the Free Ukrainian Liberation Army when the Ukraine was taken over by Russia. And this was I know there are some Russians inside the chat right now. I'm not talking about your Russia. I'm talking about Sephoruses. I formed a liberation army. I took back the Ukraine. I basically fathered Ukraine. I put so much money into it. I put at least 125,000 Robux into the Ukraine. A lot of people within the country look up to me, other than the current president, Mr. Orlov. So when they actually came to me, I didn't go to them. They came to me. Mr. Pasha came to me and said, "Listen, I need some help. I need some help. You were a former president of Ukraine, former prime minister, former all this stuff. You helped form and father this country. I need your help to get the country back and get it stabilized." And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not going to buy the group and say, "Hey, I've never been in this group before in my entire life. Let me have the group." I've never done that. I've always been in the group for a long period of time and said, "Hey, things aren't going too well. If you want me to, I'll fix it up for you. And when it's time for me to move on, I'll give it back to you or give it to the person that deserves it." And for the Ukraine, I believe that I don't deserve it. I don't believe I deserve to have the Ukraine. I just believe that I should be able to fix it and bring it back to what it once was.
If I could just get one thing in, I would just say I find it ironic. I said that we spend too much time in our group focusing on recognition, and predominantly this debate's been made up of recognition. But I guess we know that if we elect Ukrainian as president, we will stand with the Ukraine. I mean, it's in his name after all.
Okay, fine. Go ahead. Fine.
And this discussion here, I just want to ask each candidate one quick question. If you are elected president, will you devote 100% of your time to USA?
Who is first?
Mr. Ukrainian, you're first.
Of course I will. Of course.
Mr. Underwood.
Of course.
Okay, so I am the king of Morocco currently, and I'm willing to abdicate my throne, leave the group, and do everything as power in every other group that I am currently have any influence in. I'm willing to leave that to be president of these United States.
Mr. Gatsby.
But if I can go after Gatsby, sorry, I only said one thing.
Well, I'm the only candidate on stage who has only been in the USA and not only held only an office of trust in the USA, but only been a citizen in the USA for the past almost 2 years now. So absolutely, I will stay committed to the USA.
All right.
Pardon that. Before I only said, of course. I meant to say a few other things. I own 4 companies, 4 car companies, 3 clothing companies, 2. Well, I'm a manager in 2 nations. I'm just helping them piece their government back together. I'm running elections in Israel right now. I'm willing to leave every single group I'm in. That's 86 groups for this country. I'm willing to leave everything that I have behind and invest all my money into this country to become president. I'm not. If I become president, I'm going to put all the money I have, all the investments I have into this country, into the group.
Does that include the Ukraine?
That includes the Ukraine.
All right. Fantastic. So, Mr. Math-minded, would you proceed in asking the next question?
Yes. This one is to you, Mr. Ukrainian. It is becoming clearer and clearer as we. I'm sorry. That is the correct one. It is becoming clearer and clearer as we confront Election Day that everyone will not be able to assume the office of presidency. Despite your criticisms of one another, will you commit to supporting the eventual GOP presidential nominee if it isn't you?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I will. Well, a lot of my campaign promise has been to uniting the Republican Party, and this only goes to the Republican nominee. I'm not willing to support the Unitarian Party nominee. No offense, Mr. Gatsby. Only the Republican nominee.
What if the Republican Party endorses Mr. Gatsby?
If the Republican Party endorses Mr. Gatsby, of course I'm willing to. But if Timothy becomes the nominee for the Republicans, I'm willing to. I'm only going to support the Republican Party.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Timothy or Mr. Underwood, you may answer if you would like a clarification on the question or for me to restate it.
Don't worry, I got it. Okay. So my goal is to get the GOP nomination. However, if someone else manages to get that nomination, I will support them 100% and then some. And if they go to presidency, I will 100% support them even more, because what we need is a unified GOP. We need a unified country. We cannot just move another campaign to independent party or something just to make you look like you have power. I'm not about that. I am about supporting the rightful winner. And if Ukrainian or Gatsby or someone actually gets that, I will 100% support them, and I'll do anything in my power to help them get elected.
Thank you for that. And now, Mr. Gatsby.
I cannot say that I will support the nominee despite whoever wins if it's not me, and here's why. As I said earlier, the Republican support in this group is dwindling. It's on a decline trend. However, that's not the end of the world. The anti-democratic bloc is growing, in my opinion, or at a minimum, it's staying where it is, which is still bigger than the pro-democratic bloc. And this is why I'm again running for the nomination for both parties, because I believe that the best way to beat the Democrats is to unite both of the anti-democratic parties against and form a coalition, and that's the only path I see to victory other than the unity party. Thank you.
Mr. Gatsby, how are you going to unite both parties if you don't agree with one of the nominees within one of the parties? That doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like you're just saying that you're going to agree with the Unitarian Party if the Republican Party gets a nominee.
Well, I haven't said that either. I said I wouldn't support the Republican nominee, and that is because, assuming it's you or Mr. Underwood, you'll be running against a unity nominee, whether it's me or not, regardless, and that will split the anti-democratic vote. You know, the unities won't flock to the Republicans if I won the unity nomination.
Mr. Gatsby, and with all due respect, within one of your prior statements, you believed in uniting the party. If you're believing in uniting the party, why did you split the party in the first place with the Unity Party and the Republican Party?
I never said I was for uniting the Republican Party. My allegiance is to the United States, not the Republican Party.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right. So next, I believe all of you have stated either briefly or you've either mentioned how you would bring back activity or you want to fix our domestic problems before focusing, or you want to devote more time to domestic policy than foreign policy. So if everyone could state what exactly they could do to increase the activity in our government or to any domestic policy ideas, we'll have Mr. Gatsby go first.
Thank you. Well, I touched on it before about how the president having a presence at DC is good for DC activity, but if I want to take it even further with how I said it trickles down to the Secret Service and others, if we want to take it even further, it eventually gets to the Department of Justice and law enforcement because, like I said, with nobody at DC, they have no crimes, no criminals to prosecute, and without activity at DC, the Justice Department is virtually dead. You have the military in its own bubble; they can survive without DC activity, assuming there's proper leadership, trainings are held, decorum's enforced, and whatnot. State and foreign affairs can also operate within their own little bubble, although it does help to have, state visits and whatever at DC. But, in my mind, for the majority of our government, law enforcement, the Justice Department, Homeland Security, and almost every other executive department, it all starts with activity at DC. With no DC activity, the government is just playing a losing game. It's an uphill battle. And that's why, again, if elected, I commit to following the footsteps of President Green, unlike President Russo, and have a very consistent presence at DC. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Underwood.
Like I have stated before and got great criticism from Ukrainian, that we should get more criminals into DC, which would then in turn bring the police, which then will bring the Justice Department, which will then give more opportunities for judges to hold cases, which then will give more opportunities for all that, like Gatsby said. However, what Ukrainian said about me wanting to make people who join DC spend money is extremely untrue. We cannot rob the citizens of all their money and then use it for our own gain. We should be able to use the money that we make on regular revenue and not buy game passes. What I am trying to say is that we should bring Robloxians who just want to have fun in a game and run around, maybe get a car or a gun and do something which then will get the police to do a job, and if they are citizens, get them arrested and put into court, but not want them to spend money on the game as much as okay. What I'm trying to say is that criminals bring activity, bring police. We should not make the criminals spend money. Even though it does sound kind of horrible when I'm trying to say, the criminals are the key to EUSA's activity.
Mr. Ukrainian.
I just find it mildly funny how Mr. Underwood places national security as a concern, yet he wants to bring criminals to our cities to increase activity. Now, I don't think criminals are the only thing you can do to get activity. Many games, groups are able to get plenty activity just by getting citizens of the capital instead of criminals. Because the last thing we want is a server filled with criminals running around DC and having four police officers there to get rid of them. Now, what I believe is that we, instead of doing that, we should actually open up more abilities for the United States. Now, I realize this would be kind of hard to pass currently, as we have a Democratic Congress, and having a Republican president would be kind of difficult for it to pass a lot of legislation. But I believe we should open a lot more agencies that have many more jobs. we should just have a mild selection, having FBI, NPD, stuff like that. Also, I believe that currently, if we want people to get arrested and go to court, oh my God, that's going to take a long time because our court system is way too complicated for that. And to put up a reference for another country, if you go to the UK, if you go and you kill somebody, you get arrested, you get out of jail, and you go kill somebody again. In our country, you go and kill somebody, you wait 6 days for your trial, you get a trial with your peers, among your peers, and then you get either put in federal prison for 30 days to 2 months. Was Dave Mitchell got put in prison for 3 months or something? And then after 3 months, you're out, and then you can do it again. So currently, I think we're a little bit too complicated for that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, like I said, activity at DC is the key to it all, but that doesn't mean we should implement game passes or make DC pay to win. We want to attract, mainly people who will get engaged in our government, mainly members of our government. And we don't want to attract a bunch of kids with mommy's credit card buying guns and game passes and whatnot.
Okay, so I'm going back to what Ukrainian said with the trials. With the trial with peers, that would bring 6 to 12 people into a courtroom, including the defendant, execution, the lawyers, the judges, the bailiff, everything that is needed to be there. And that would just bring even more activity. And I personally love the justice system, and how it works amazes me. Now, seeing that into action will bring some activity, if not a lot of activity, into DC, the courts, which will also go around and courts, which would be great. We might even, with this, have simplification within the courts, which we don't have because the House Representatives and the Senate don't really think about it because it's not a top priority as of this moment. If we make it a top priority, then, and once it's done, everything will function a little bit better than it does now. Thank you.
We'll be moving on to the next question. Mr. Pierre has currently lost access to his microphone, so I will be continuing the moderation. So we're going to move on to personal questions now. The first question will be for Mr. Ukrainian, and just for the sake of time, we're going to have no debate on these questions. Each candidate will do their best to answer them in 2 minutes. So, Mr. Ukrainian, you've previously been accused by the founder for throwing off polls by getting a large number of people to vote numerous times. How can you justify to the American people and to the party that you are an honest and worthy man to hold the office of the presidency?
Can you repeat the beginning part of that?
Yes. You have been previously accused by the founder for throwing off polls by getting a large number of people to vote numerous times for you. How can you justify to the American people and to the party that you are an honest and worthy man to hold the office of the presidency?
Well, first, I believe the founder was wrong on many occasions because I did not throw the poll at random discords or random people and say, hey, vote for me in the poll, because that's not honesty. Our country is looking for honesty. Our people want honesty as a president. They want a president who's honest, trustworthy, loyal, all these things. We're not I show all these qualities. I'm not going to throw a poll into a Skype chat with 1,500 people and say, hey guys, vote for me. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not going to do that. Many other people may do that, but I'm not going to do that, because if I lose, okay, I'm still going to continue. I'm not going to quit the group if I lose. If I quit the group, I'm still entitled for this country. I'm still entitled to my job within the Secret Service currently. I'm still going to remain within this country. I'm not going to, if I lose the election, I'm not going to quit the group and say, screw that. I'm going to stay here. If I really, really, really wanted to rig the election and everything, if I lost, I would rage quit out of the group and be like, screw that. I'm done with this whole group. But I'm not going to do that. I've been in this group way too long. I've supported this group. I've helped this group. I've helped with national security policies, a bunch of stuff. I believe my trustworthiness helps or is part of my my roles that I've had within this group. Thank you.
All right, next question is for Timothy R. Underwood. Mr. Underwood, you are relatively new to EUSA and seemingly sprouted your campaign after a large argument with Mr. Ukrainian. How can you justify to the American people and to the party that you are fit for the office of the presidency?
Well, that is an interesting question. I have shown that I'm able to run a government, and I have been in numerous USAs, especially NUSA. I have shown considerable support for EUSA even when I was not in the group. I have shown time and time again to Connor, to the president, to everyone in this current administration and in Connor's administration that I fully support this group. I also know about the politics of this group before I even joined it, and I know about this group. And when I joined this group, I thought, run for president. Let's do it. That would be fun. I might be able to give the citizens a voice, because I know in NUSA and several other groups that in NUSA I was a congressman. I was fired, may I say, fired for, I would never do such a thing, and they fired me because I was giving a voice to a few people. They did not like how much I supported the people's voice. Their corruption overcame me, and they kicked me out of office. I didn't even get an impeachment trial. What I want to do with USA is make sure that never happens, make sure that have a voice with open door policies. Now, excuse me, I'm going to have to wrap this up right now and say,
Okay. Mr. Gatsby, you have the last personal question. Senator, you've been labeled as a troll by many Americans and by the founder himself. He has gone on to say that you could not win the presidency and has also kicked you from the USA chat. How can the American people and the Republican Party trust you to be a professional if you are the nominee?
Thank you for the question. I guess I'll start with addressing the founder. Quite frankly, he's someone I don't take very seriously. As we all know, his temperament is very flawed, to put it nicely. So in terms of him, I'm not really concerned. But I do agree with you that there is a considerable amount of people who would make that argument that I am a troll. And look, here's what I say to them. You know, I'm not going to resort to this is a kid's game argument, but I don't think what we say in the general discussion chat of the United States should be a reflection of our character as role play politicians. When it comes to getting work done, I don't think I've taken a short road. I have 15 bills in my name right now. I'm the top legislator, and I've held the position for a long time. I've kind of been in competition with Senator Walsh, but predominantly it's been me. And if you were to take the number of bills, all of my bills authored by me, that have been passed through both chambers of Congress and signed by the president, which have been since repealed, the number would easily exceed 25. I know how to work the system of Congress. Neither of the other two candidates on the stage have one law to their name. And what I do as a private citizen in the general discussion chat should not be a reflection of my political career. Because when it comes to getting things done, I get them done in a professional manner. And I would also ask my critics to spot one such incident where I've been a troll during a Senate session or during a House session, whereas I can point to Senator Ramsey Clark, who numerously has many times broken decorum and caused a ruckus during sessions.
Can I just point out one thing real quick? Just really quick, Mr. Patterson. Now, I just spoke to Timothy, Mr. Underwood, and I just asked him, how long ago did you join USA? He just sent me a thing saying 2 to 3 weeks ago. If I am correct, I just spoke to Mr. Reagan, and I said, if you look at Article 2, Section 1, Paragraph 4 of our current Constitution, it says no person except a citizen of the United States shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall a person, neither any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 3 months, a citizen of the United States.
Well, it looks like we have Owen Herder Part 2. Mr. Underwood, is there anything you have to say for yourself?
Well, with that, I just learned about this, and I must say, I'm completely surprised, and I congratulate Ukrainian for winning this debate. Now, I would like to listen to the rest of the debate via Discord, and I am ending my campaign right now.
Well, they say history repeats itself.
All right. Okay. So, last question for our 2 remaining candidates. As you may know, David J. Mitchell was sentenced to jail for several months. So, as president, would you pardon David J. Mitchell? And if so, why? Mr. Gatsby, you're first.
Well, as you'll find out when the plan gets released, well, I guess you'll find out now because I'll tell you. One of my main priorities is pardoning Vice President Mitchell. It's already been disclosed that his downfall was orchestrated. I'm not going to name any names, but we know where they come from. We know what party they come from. We know who they're a part of, and unfortunately, the vice president is one of many victims of this group of people. And if elected president, I absolutely intend to pardon him and anyone else who they decide to take down because they dislike them over the next month and a half, because they still do hold power, unfortunately.
All right, Mr. Ukrainian, same question.
I entirely agree with Mr. Gatsby. I believe him being put in federal prison was 100% out of context and should not have happened. And same points as Mr. Gatsby, I 100% agree he should be pardoned.
All right, well, that wraps up tonight's debate. The GOP primary will begin shortly.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay, I must say I endorse Ukrainian for president. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So the GOP primary will begin tonight at some time. So be on the lookout for the shout in the Republican group and also on the GOP Discord. Well, that is all for tonight. I want to thank Mr. Math-Minded for co-moderating this debate. He did a great job. He's a great developer. And that is it. Thank you and good night.